Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jay. He's Maddie. This is Yankee and The Brit Sports Talk. Today, we're going to talk week 1 of the NFL. And Maddie, I guess the biggest story of the week, not for games and everything, but that just came out is the whole will Urban Meyer go to USC and all of that. So we might as well start with the Jags Texans. I figure it's a good place to start. We can hit on Urban Meyer. And I think neither of us thought the Jags were going to get beat like that.
Yeah, I think the Jags-Texans game would be one of the bigger talking points anyway, even if it wasn't for the Urban Meyer thing, because one, we thought the Texans would be terrible. They didn't look terrible. They looked kind of good. And we thought the Jags would be all right. Like, we didn't think they'd be. I had them losing that game due to the experience on the Texan side compared to the experience on the Jags side. But when you get beat by as many points as they did, that's not an experience gap. That's just a general talent issue.
Yeah, and it's the first week, and me and you talk about this. The first week is always weird. It's always this weird. You don't know what team's going to show up. We could talk about a bunch of teams. I mean, we could have talked about the Packers, Saints, whatever we wanted. There's a ton of teams that didn't look the way they will, so you don't want to read too much into week 1. But with the Jags, because they were so bad to begin with, the Trevor Lawrence era, the Urban Meyer era, I think maybe we all just wanted to see something. They didn't have to win, but we wanted to see something to go, okay, I see where they're going or what they're doing. And I didn't see any of that. It looked like Urban made some horrible coaching decisions too. Why do you call 3 passing plays in a row at the end of the half when, okay, if you're playing Eastern Illinois and you're Ohio State, you can do that. You can't do that in the NFL. You got to eat some of that clock.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not helping Trevor Lawrence doing stuff like that either. Like, it's not – he's going to be a very talented quarterback in this league. Everybody's saying he's a bust already. Guy's in a bad situation. He's going to be very talented in this league. Don't catch yourselves, people. Come on. But he's not ready to just drop back and pass and drop back and pass and drop back and pass all the time. Like, he's not ready to do that just yet. He needs a run game to help him out. And they have a guy who ran for over 1,000 yards last year. Like, it's not like Travis Etienne's gone out and they've lost an entire running game, you know? Like, they've got a guy who ran for 1,000 yards undrafted last year. And I think there's more to this than meets the eye about how bad that was. And with some of the news, some of the rumors coming out today, I'm not entirely sure how true they are. Like, I don't think he's going to leave straight away. I can see him leaving very soon.
Well, that's the thing. So everybody, I got a clip for you from the Pat McAfee show. Thanks to Pat McAfee for allowing all of us to use his clips too. Just a shout out to him for being that type of guy. But it's Mike Lombardi talking about it and telling you what Mike Lombardi knows. So you all just check this out real quick and then we'll talk about it.
Let's get right to it. You had one of my favorite tweets I've ever seen in my entire life, Lombo. You saying, hey, I got some sources down there in Columbus, all right, that I trust. They're telling me that Meyer might love going back to college. The timing of this move for USC tells me there's something brewing. Not sure what, but something. Obviously, everybody reads that and goes, oh, is Lombardi saying that Urban Meyer's going to take this USC job? Is that what you're hearing? And how did this come to be? Because this story, not just from you, but it is hot on the internet streets right now, especially after watching Urban Meyer fail on Sunday with Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, the Urban Meyer, he needs to read my book about the middle eight. He violated that. But let's talk about that tweet. So I'm just minding my own business yesterday, watching tape, and I get a text from somebody in the league, and they said, Urban to USC. And I said, no way. And the guy says, you want to bet on it? And when he said that, I'm thinking, wait a second here. He knows way more than I do. He's asking me the answers to the tests that he already knows. So I said, well, tell me why. And he said, look, everybody in Columbus, and this gentleman's from Columbus, knows that maybe pro football may not be sitting well with Urban. Now, they're going to deny all this. We all know that, right? They're going to say, oh, no, Urban's loving it, all that. But when he was working for Fox, everybody in Los Angeles and Columbus thought he was going to take the USC job. But Clay Helton is the ultimate survivor. And I found it interesting that for all the times Clay was going to get fired, after Stanford was the time they decided to fire him. Like they were not going to give him a chance to recruit the season, right? Like that makes no sense. It's only the second game of the year, right? Like he could really come back. He could come back and win all the rest of his games. Like you pull the plug now, that tells me there's more to it. It's what we call, again, second order thinking. There's got to be more to this than just meets the eye. And that was the tweet.
It was an incredible tweet. I mean, it set our office ablaze.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we're like, Lombo knows people. This isn't like Lombo's not just sending this out there to get clout. Like this is not Lombardi. Like, oh, wait a minute. Here's a little piece of information I think the people will enjoy. If he was to leave Jacksonville after everything that has gone on down there between he and the Cons and him and Trevor Lawrence and everything like that, what do? They just act like the Urban Meyer era never existed? Do they clean house? Do they hire from within? What do you do there?
So after seeing that, here's the thing. Do I think Urban Meyer will leave after this year? Maybe. Absolutely maybe. We've seen Nick Saban do it after he said he wasn't going to do it. We've seen Petrino do it in Atlanta in mid-season, which I don't think Urban would do. I don't think mid-season he'd up and go. But
I think it depends how bad it's going.
If the rumors are true, too, that people don't like the way he's running it like a college or things like that. I don't know, though. And I don't know. What do you think, Maddie? You don't think he's going to go?
I think it entirely depends on how well he's doing this season. If they're as bad as they look by Thanksgiving, then I could see him taking another job in college and leaving then. And it'd be a mutual decision. But if they're improving, if they're starting to get to the way he wants them to look, if Trevor Lawrence starts to throw some darts around the field and stuff like that, then he'll probably stay. It'll be one or the other for me. I think it's entirely based on reputation. The Jags can be one of the only teams. There's a few teams who've done it, but they could be one of the only ones to join this group where they haven't won a game for 20 regular season games. And after losing this weekend, it's very likely that that's going to happen if you look there running games now. Now, Urban Meyer's lost 7 regular season games in about 9 years or something ridiculous like that. He could go 0-7 to start the season. Is that what he wants, really? If the guys aren't making improvements, if you're going out 0-7 and they're making improvements and they're listening to you, but it sounds like they're not listening to him either and they're not making improvements. So I'm not sure how much I'd want to stay in that job, to be perfectly honest.
Yep, that's me. I'm exactly where you are. If they get off and they seem like they're going somewhere with the Jags, then he probably stays. But then again, after winning so much, like you said, Ohio State, Florida, even Utah, do you want to be the guy who's just rebuilding for the next 3 years? Because you're not even going to compete for a divisional title, most likely for at least 3 to 4 years. So it's where where does Urban want to be? And hey, Pete Carroll made that USC job the top pinnacle at one point in college football. I think Urban Meyer could do amazing things recruiting in Southern California and LA, but it's what does Urban want to do? And the argument is, and I don't know Urban, you hear it back and forth. A lot of people say he's an asshole.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't think that's actually the biggest story in the NFL so far this season. I think the biggest story in the NFL so far this season is Dak Prescott coming back after his injury and throwing for having 400 yards of total offense, being the second highest passer behind Derek Carr in the opening week of the season. Dak is back. The Cowboys still lost. So I'm not going to bang the table like Skip Bayless did. How about them Cowboys? Because they're still 0-1, but they're 0-1 against a very good Tampa Bay team. And Dak is back.
Okay, I know right away, everybody, if I don't give a caveat here, is going to say I'm shitting on Dak, and I am not at all. I text you during the game and said your boy is balling.
Yeah.
But you know how everything is if you're not praising Dak, you're shitting on him, right? Yeah. And for me, my biggest takeaway from that game, it wasn't Dak Prescott, it was what's going on with Tampa's defense. And it's not to take away from Dak playing. It wasn't. It's just that I watched it and it didn't look like the defense that I saw at the end of last year for Tampa. That's what and so for me, the biggest takeaway is did Tampa's defense fall off, or is that just the first week? Is that just the first up? And like I said, it's not to take away from the way Dak played at all. Also, Cowboys defense still got me questioning some shit, but
I actually think there's only one question with the Cowboys defense, and that's Anthony Brown. He's shit. Like, there was one half of the field that was on lock from Trevon Diggs, and then the other half of the field, the guys were running wild. Like, Antonio Brown had an amazing game against our DB, Anthony Brown, who was terrible. Hopefully, Calvin Joseph will get fit, our second-round pick. Hopefully, he'll get fit, and his natural abilities will be able to kind of mean that he can mark people up in the backfield as well. I thought there was a few growing pains that Tom Brady's always going to take advantage with. People in Cowboys Nation shitting on Micah Parsons for getting played by the greatest quarterback of all time. Loads of people have done it. And then,
do you remember what I texted you?
I remember texting you saying that's a disappointing play from Micah Parsons, but okay.
And I texted you back and said he's a smart kid. He'll never make that mistake again.
He won't do it again. Or
that's. I mean, come on, people. Come on. It's just like I keep hearing. Well, see, Zeke sucks now. Zeke sucks now. Did you really expect Zeke to go off against that front line?
Yeah,
I didn't.
It's all over the place. It's Zeke shit. He didn't do anything. The guy was throwing blocks everywhere. It was like another offensive lineman. That's why I was going to come on to your point about the defensive qualities of Tampa. Now, there were a lot of injuries in the secondary for Tampa. There are a lot of injuries, so I don't want to take the Cowboys to take full credit for putting 29 points on them or whatever, because they still didn't win the game. They still didn't win the game. If Greg Zuerlein kicks those points, but also if Mike Evans or Godwin don't drop a few balls and stuff, then, so we can't blame it all on the kicker and not look at the fact that they could have easily won it as well.
The only difference with Tampa's defense from last year, and this is what I meant, and it wasn't, like I said, to shit on Dak because he hit some dimes.
Yeah.
It's just, there was a couple times where, like, Amari Cooper was so wide open. Like, you would have never seen a guy that wide open last year against Tampa at the end of the year. So that was all. But it could be that was just my question.
I think it's a talented.
Threw him open too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a talented receiving core against some backup DBs, and our offensive line played really well, especially with our other offensive lineman, Ezekiel Elliott, making the blocks when nobody else would. Like, he was hitting those linebackers hard when they were coming into, like, that's his boy back there. Like, Dak Prescott is his boy, and he's going to put his neck on the line for him. Dallas looked good. I was very, very, I wasn't happy. I was pretty pissed off that we lost. I'm not one of those Cowboys fans that if we won, I would have been through the roof.
I don't believe in moral victories. Yeah.
I'm still measured at this moral victory shit. Yeah.
Right.
It's something that works in British sports where if you only lose 1-0 to Man United and you're Sunderland because you don't have as much money as Man United, then that's a moral victory. That's fine. But in American sports, it's meant to all be as level a playing field as you can make it. So you can't really measure moral victories. It's not how it works, but they look good. They look like the best team in the division this year, apart from maybe the Eagles, but we'll talk about that. They were playing a different caliber of team, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yes, and another storyline that I wanted to talk about this week was the Colts looked bad.
Yeah, I want to refer you back to our chats on the Colts.
They really need Quentin Nelson back. They really need Quentin Nelson back. I felt bad for Carson Wentz watching the condensed game. He was running for his life. And then one little rumor that I heard today, Josh Gordon passes the NFL substance abuse, waiting for Roger Goodell to reinstate him. And I heard a rumor he wants to go to the Colts.
I just don't understand why. They already have got a lot of distraction going on with the COVID protocols, Carson Wentz's mind, and that kind of stuff. I don't understand bringing the extra distraction of what having Josh Gordon seems to do to a team. And I believe in second chances. I believe in third chances. Anything to do with drugs, I'm there for it. Like, I'm happy for him to be rehabbed and healthy and stuff. But the guy's had so many chances now. Like, is he worth bringing on to your team, if you get what I mean? Like, maybe the Indianapolis is a good place to go for him. I don't know. But I hope he's good. If he comes in and plays well, I'll be very, very happy for him. I just don't think the Colts it's in their best interest with the amount of distractions going around them anyway.
I got two trains of thought on Josh Gordon. And one is the NFL's ridiculous. Get over it. It's marijuana. He wasn't doing cocaine.
I agree.
But I also have the train of thought of, you knew what the fucking rules were. You still acted like a jerk off, and you got yourself kicked out a bunch of times and couldn't get it. For the Colts, though, they have nobody to throw to. Pittman couldn't get open. T.Y.'s out for another how many weeks? I think they need a receiver. So if you're the Colts, it makes sense to take a flyer on a guy, because once you sign him after week one, nothing's guaranteed. So if he becomes even a tiny problem, you just cut him again and he's gone.
Yeah, if I'm the Colts, I'm calling teams to see if they'll trade them their wide receivers and what it would take, because they have some other areas where they've got crazy amounts of depth, like their defense, although it didn't really look like it
but their offense didn't help them out at all either.
Yeah. Talking about people being far too wide open, which would have never happened last season. Tyler Lockett's receptions were really wide open. That really messed me up in fantasy, man. Like, there was just a period of time where I was absolutely, if you're watching, I can't remember who it was, Team Davis. If you're watching this, man, I was really, really comfortable. And then there was that period of play where Tyler Lockett catches a deep ball, and that was it. Like, that was it. It was off to the races, man. And Tyler Lockett played incredibly well, as did Russell Wilson. And we didn't expect the Seahawks to look as good as they did. In fairness to the Colts as well.
Yeah, Russell Wilson played great. Nothing like a Badger quarterback playing great in the NFL. Just saying. Russell looked good. I did not know what was going to happen with the whole Russell Wilson, with this offseason and everything that went on with Pete Carroll. Wasn't sure. They don't seem to have, even if they ain't getting along, they're not holding animosity, kind of like Brady, Belichick, or whatever. Yeah. I think that they'll be fine this year. That was a big question, and I think they answered it in the first game. Is even if they have an issue, both guys are putting it aside because they have the same goal.
Yeah, and we've talked about two very impressive quarterback performances so far in Dak and Russell Wilson, but the quarterback of the week must go to Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was awesome against the Tennessee Titans. I loved the Cardinals this year. We spoke about it at length, about how much we love them. We're worried there's a bit too much inexperience in the team, but if they were going to lose a game, it would be this kind of game against like a team that can run the ball really hard. But it looks like their defense is kind of firing, and if their defense is firing, what the hell's going to happen with their offense? Well,
two things. One, first, Titan fans, don't get too down. That once you got behind, it was a fucking snowball.
Yeah,
it was just one of them games that once it got out of hand, it was out of hand.
You just called the Cardinals on a hot day, man.
How long do you let Chandler beat Taylor Lewan for 5 fucking sacks and not help him? Why is there not a tight end out there chipping? Why aren't you double teaming Chandler and poor Taylor Lewan on his first game back? And it's not like he's some scrub. He's just been injured for a year. He's a Pro Bowler. Like, the dude can play, and you let him just get beat all day.
Yeah, could the reason that they couldn't provide too much help is because if they provide Chandler Jones if they provide if they provide help on Chandler Jones' side, they have JJ Watt on the other side as well. They have Xavier Collins ready to make those. Isaiah Simmons looked awesome.
I don't care if you have to keep 2 tight ends in and run 2 guys out on routes. You got Julio now too. You know what I mean? You got some receivers that can make. You cannot let your quarterback get. I felt bad for Tannehill.
He's a mobile quarterback as well. Like, that's the other surprising thing about this. It's like you don't see very many, like 5 sacks from a mobile quarterback. That's quite a lot. Like,
Chandler was just amazing in that
their
game.
entire defense was incredible. And that's the thing that everybody's worried about the Cardinals. I'm now looking at them after that game, and I don't want to get too hyped, but they kind of answered all of the questions that were the issue in our last video, like when we were talking about them.
Yeah, the only question I still have is Kingsbury. What's his name? The head coach?
Cliff Kingsbury, yeah.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury. Yeah, that's the only question I still have.
Yeah, but it's almost like Kyler Murray's the kind of guy who can just, when we're talking on talent levels and stuff like that, like he's the kind of guy that can play through a bad system. That's the kind of quarterback that I like. He was incredible. He was absolutely amazing. Their offense is always going to be high octane. It's going to be fast, fun to watch, really good.
See, that's where I get worried, is because they're very fast and they're very heavy on the pass. Is what happens when it's not clicking and you have to slow it down and get that running game going. Cliff Kingsbury play that type of football because he's never done it in college either. That's where that's where I worry about him. But we'll see. I mean, unless maybe you just use Kyler Murray as your running back, as long as you don't get him killed. Like,
that was the problem last season, though, wasn't it? That he took off, and that was the most impressive thing about Kyler Murray.
He was awesome
the other day.
He was awesome.
That was the most impressive thing about Kyler Murray for me on Sunday, was he only took off the run on planned runs like 5 times, when normally he'd stay in the pocket. As soon as his internal clock goes, he takes off. And it was very, very impressive from him about how long he stood in the pocket and passed it, and then that makes your plan run even more deadly.
I hate that they run these quarterbacks the way they do, though, because you're going to get him killed. I think I texted you during the Cowboys game and said they should never, ever run Dak on a freaking draw again. And if they do, somebody should get fired after his foot almost fell off.
The only time you run Dak is red zone read option pass,
Right, but I'm saying I think that Arizona's issue is they're going to have to use Kyler Murray kind of like a running back in some situations to give them a running game. And I just pray they don't get that kid killed.
Yeah, Connor looked good, though. Like, when you have Kyler Murray as the potential running back, then your actual running back is going to benefit from that, because it means there's one less person that's going to be going after him because they've got a spy Kyler Murray. So hopefully they'll clock onto that. Hopefully the box won't be as filled as it has been in previous for the Cardinals, because now they've got, who have they got? They've got Anthony Hopkins.
Or I mean, not
Julio Jones.
I meant Anthony
AJ
Hopkins, AJ Green.
Christian Kirk. Like, they've got a good wide receiver core, so that box isn't as full. And Kyler Murray looked awesome. He looked absolutely incredible. And if he plays like that all season, MVP.
Yeah, I think they would have won either way with the way they were playing, but I also think he ended up getting more stats and stuff because of the snowball effect, and Tennessee was just on their heels the whole. And once anybody who plays sports knows, once you start to get beat like that, it's hard to stop the push.
Yeah,
so I don't think Titans fans have to worry just yet.
Yeah, I don't think they have to worry too much, but they could do is showing up their defense a little bit. That's like they got beat on offense because of how hyped the Cardinals seem to be, and Chandler Jones just having one of those days where he was unstoppable. Hopefully they'll learn and provide some help a lot faster. Their defense has been a problem for, this will be the second or third season if they don't fix it. So that could be the only thing that can hamper them from getting to the playoffs. Still, I wouldn't worry too much about it, though.
Well, to a team that I'm not worried about, but that just pissed me off, the Browns and the Chiefs. But the Browns had that freaking game. They had it. And don't get me wrong, the comeback helped me in fantasy because Patrick Mahomes, my starting quarterback. But, man, I thought the Browns had that opening game. I was like, this is so perfect for the Browns to get off to a hot start, to beat a team that, like, you catch them early instead of late, like we talked about. Good time to catch them. They had it. It was perfectly set up, and they let it go right. They let it slip right through their fingers.
Yeah, it was like the whole entire reason that so Patrick Mahomes is now 11-0 in September, so they're not one of those teams that you want to catch early. They're not one of those teams that you want to catch early. But the whole thing that makes them special wasn't the problem. Usually the first game of the season, Kansas City just runs away with it because of all the crazy new offensive stuff they've added in, because of all the weapons that they have. Well, the Browns read all of that. The Browns were fine. They were playing really, really well. If Nick Chubb doesn't fumble that football, this is a totally different conversation. But the amount of stuff that Nick Chubb's done for the Browns so far, you can't really bag on him for that too much. I text you saying the Browns are the Browns. I text you saying that. I just want to retract that comment because I think this was a bit more the Chiefs being the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying about them being hot in the beginning of the year, but Patrick Mahomes, besides the last Super Bowl, hasn't lost a playoff game in 2 years, so you don't want to catch him late either.
You just don't want to play Kansas City.
So that's why it's always best week 1 or 2 to catch a team that's going to whip your ass usually, because it's when you have the best chance of catching them off guard or getting them. And I thought it was just perfectly set up for the Browns, and they let it slip, and it it crushed me. Not that I'm a Browns fan, because I'm really not. I'm really excited to see where they go. And I like
sweetheart team for this season.
But yeah, that's all. That game was so exciting to watch, though. But it was so gut wrenching if you wanted the Browns to pull that out.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of like this. The Chiefs are this kind of team where you have to be beating them by more than 7. You give them 7 points at the start of the game because they're just going to have one of those freakish plays where somehow Patrick Mahomes makes a throw, or Tyreek Hill makes a catch, or runs a route, or Travis Kelce makes a catch and just makes a huge play where nobody can do anything about it. And that was the downhill pass to Tyreek Hill this time round. And then once you give them that 7 points for the Chiefs being the Chiefs, the Browns then weren't really far enough ahead to be coasting through to the end, especially if you fumble. And the Chiefs in Arrowhead, first game back with fans allowed. I'm not worried for the Browns. They were awesome. Why I'm thinking now is the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Like, they're just they're just a team that's got a few incredibly talented players rather than the system. But Andy Reid is an incredible coach as well.
I couldn't have said it better. I got nothing else to add, Maddie. That was
it was an amazing game, but there's not actually that much to say about it because it's two teams that we know are both really good, and they just did the things that they normally do. It just turns out the things that they normally do is Kansas City Chiefs usually pull a rabbit out of the hat, and the Browns usually shit down their leg. Like that's the way that it goes. But the Browns are still Super Bowl contenders. Don't think that we're not saying that. I still think they're going to win the division, even with the Steelers winning and stuff like that. But the person who had the biggest shock in their division was the Baltimore Ravens getting beat by the Las Vegas Raiders. I was watching that game on the way to university the other day because I can't stay awake all the time to watch them. I let myself stay awake when the Cowboys are playing so I can watch it live. The rest of them I watch on 40 minutes the next day. But the Ravens versus the Raiders, man, like, what was that game? What happened?
Well, and I don't remember who said this, but I don't remember who was a commentator or one of the sports shows I watched, but we shouldn't be as shocked. The Raiders do start fast and they start good, and it seems every year, and then they fall off a cliff. But the Ravens just made some awful decisions. And I know everybody was like, oh, I'm worried about their defense. I'm worried about their defense because of all the injuries. I wasn't so worried about their defense, and I think their defense played just fine. I think it was their offense that let them down.
Yeah.
For all the injuries they had, I didn't think they played bad.
Yeah, definitely. Like, they're a totally fine defense. That entire AFC North is a horrible division to play against. Like, with the way that their defenses are, they're going to absolutely knock 7 shades of shit out of each other, like, the entire time. I just think Lamar had a good game. but Derek Carr had a great game. That's how I see it. What I'm saying, I'm not surprised that the Raiders won, to be perfectly honest. I'm not entirely surprised. It's just how it happened. Like, I was watching it and I was just like, oh, because when you're watching the 40 minutes, you can see where a game's like coming close because like this is 1 minute from the end. That's one play. In that 1 minute, we had overtime where the Ravens were in place to score, and then the Raiders were in place to score, and then the Ravens were in place to score again, and then the Raiders somehow won the game. Like, I'm not entirely sure of what happened.
I thought that was going to be the tie I called for the Ravens. I thought Gruden was going to give it to me week 1 because I gave him a tie this year. Yeah. So I was like, Gruden's going to give it to me week 1 with his bad play calling. But the Ravens had a chance to win that, and they just shit the bed at the end. They really did. Like, they had every opportunity at the end of overtime to go win that game, and that's all you're looking for in a game like that, and they couldn't do it. And it's not to take anything against the Raiders because the Raiders played good. I just expected more on the Ravens than I got.
Yeah, I think the issue, like Lamar's turnover, Lamar fumbles the ball again. This thing about Lamar having turnovers, Lamar doesn't turn the ball over that much because he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Like, he only threw 9 interceptions or something last season. He does fumble the ball a bit more than you would want, but that's good. He's trying to make too many plays. Sometimes you just need to say to a guy, like, know when the play's done. Like, know it's over. Wrap the ball up in 2 hands and take the tackle. You don't need to run about, like, showing it like that. It's how Fijians play rugby because they have such massive hands. They're, like, able to fling the ball about like that, so they run into contact with the ball like that. And Lamar, why are you holding it like that? Because you're not throwing it downfield in that position. Like, you're past the throwing line. You just hold on to the ball at that point. You know, that was infuriating to see. It almost looked like Kyler Murray. This week is the first time I'm going to say it was the first time I saw this. I've seen it a bit in the media. Kyler Murray's a more consistent Lamar Jackson. Like, that's just what I saw this weekend. I'm not going to say that's what it is over the season, but when you look at this weekend, you can see why people are saying that.
Yes, and it was a little bit of a historical night because it was the first game in NFL history that an openly gay player played in.
Hey, and it was in Vegas. That's another big deal as well.
And he had a sack, I think, too. I think Nassib had a sack too. So good night for all around. And I just thought the Raiders probably needed the win more than Baltimore, and they got it. But I just don't know. Like, Baltimore's offense had me questioning things because you got 2 wide receivers who can play now, Sammy Watkins, Hollywood Brown, and whoever took my idea and went and snagged Lamar Jackson in our fantasy football draft, Latavius Murray before I could get to him, kudos, because I was sure going to snag him off the waiver. Huh?
Is he gone?
Yeah. So whoever got him before me, kudos.
I left him because he was playing KC. I left him because he was playing Kansas. I was taking him next week, Dick.
Yeah. He's gone because he signed with Baltimore and they have no running backs. But that's a good signing. I think Le'Veon Bell will help him out because he's good on the backfield. I think Baltimore will be fine. It's just like, I don't know how you feel good about yourself if you're Baltimore after that game.
Yeah, and the issue is fixable for Baltimore as well. I think they just, like, it was that kind of game where it was just all sorts of crazy shit was happening. It could have gone either way. Derek Carr threw a few lights out balls. Like, he's got the most passing yards in the league this season. He threw some great footballs. Derek Carr is a fantastic quarterback who doesn't get enough credit. Even from his own coach, he doesn't get enough credit.
Right.
But, you know, like, he's an incredible quarterback. They caught the Raiders when they were hot. They weren't quite clicking. That won't happen under Jim Harbaugh next week. Them not clicking won't happen.
We'll talk about this in our next video, but they'd run into a buzzsaw next week too in the Chiefs. So
their personal buzzsaw.
That's a
Patrick
rough
Mahomes
loss
living
coming
rent
off of.
free. Patrick Mahomes living rent free in Lamar Jackson's mind.
Yeah.
That's what they run into next week.
So, well, there's a teaser. So keep your eyes open for our next video, guys. I think we covered it. So thanks for watching. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.